And now, the Mystic Hour with Mystic Black and Nick Marcus.
What is poppin', fight fans? And welcome to another episode of the Mystic Hour Live, episode 13. On our way 13. To 100 million. We're gonna get there somehow, right, Nick? We'll figure out our way. Nick Marcus is in the house. Oh, I got it right this time. No, I didn't. I said it wrong the first time.
Nope, no, you didn't. We'll never get it right, but that's okay.
Well, it doesn't matter.
13th episode, maybe by that 100 millionth episode you were talking about, we'll get it right.
We're gonna get it right, and I'm gonna point the right way. But guys, it was an amazing weekend. We had some good fights in Abu Dhabi. The final fight in Fight Island, Khabib Nurmagomedov took on Justin Gaethje in one of the most anticipated fights in UFC lightweight history, and to be honest, in UFC history. I was looking forward to this fight big time. We talked about it last week. We had a whole big discussion with Serge, and I completely got this fight wrong. I was going to pull up the video from last week just to, play it, just to see how stupid I sounded. But instead, I'll just talk about it. If you guys want to go watch that episode, give us another view and you can see the dumb thing that I said. But whatever. Khabib Nurmagomedov went in there in the most dominant performance, in my opinion, of his career. Submitted Justin Gaethje in the second round with a triangle choke. He hasn't done this since his earlier days, and he just looked amazing in there. Nick, what do you think of that fight?
Well, I mean, me and Serge predicted it correctly, right? I mean, who was going to really stop Khabib?
Shouts to Serge.
And not only that, but like we talked about, Justin Gaethje, I did feel that this was going to be his biggest threat out of anybody that he's fought recently. And even then, man, Justin actually won the first round according to the judges. So he did put up a fight. He didn't make it too easy for him. But at the end of the day, it always looks easy for Khabib just because of, the possibly best fighter ever pound for pound. But I guess we'll get into that later. But yeah, Khabib performed exceptionally well. Not that I'm surprised. And he was able to pull out the win. And with that triangle choke, he actually supposedly did it because he had, I think I had heard or read, that Justin's family was there and he didn't necessarily want to, I suppose, choke him out in another way that would hurt him.
Even though he still ended up choking him out after tapping 3 times. I don't know who was reffing that, who the ref was. I don't remember was it Jason Herzog?
Jason Herzog.
My God.
And he's my favorite ref too.
Oh, he just slipped up. He slipped up there. Yeah.
Oh no, he pulled a Herb Dean.
Oh, he's tapping one way, tapped the other way, and then he ended up just going out, which is unfortunate. And Justin's family probably didn't want to see that. But it's a better way to go out than being knocked out. And I've seen Justin Gaethje get knocked out or TKO'd or just get hit really bad. So, and Khabib wasn't really trying to do that. You can just kind of tell he was just waiting for that takedown, and he was getting leg kicked by Justin, and I'm just like, oh boy, those are gonna hurt like later on in the fight if it goes that long. And Khabib was taking shots from Justin as well, like overhands from Justin. I'm just like, as soon as I saw Khabib take those shots, I'm like, you know what? I'm not giving Justin a chance anymore, because that was the thing I thought Justin would be better at is Khabib is striking. And that shows you how underrated that Khabib striking is 100%. So after this fight, Khabib ends up retiring, and he's sitting there in the cage. He's kind of pulling off the tape and everything like that. And I was watching with a couple of friends. I'm like, oh, is he about to retire? But I'm like, no way he's going to retire, because he kept talking about the GSP fight. And I'm like, maybe he just wanted to take the gloves off. He was just tired of having it on his hand, but he's never done that in his fights previous. But he gets on a microphone. He tells John Anik, I made a promise to my mom. This will be my last fight. I can't be here with my dad anymore. 29-0. I'm done. Nick, what emotions did you feel as Khabib said those words?
Well, it wasn't even when he said those words. I knew it from the moment that he just fell to his knees and he started crying inconsolably. Because I can't blame it, because this is his first fight without his dad. He's fought without his dad physically there, but I think I knew from that moment that he was like, there's no way that he's going to fight again. Just carrying that emotion and having to, it's already a a painstakingly emotional experience, having to go into a main event and a fight, and especially somebody of his stature. So I just knew it from that moment. And then when he said it, I was actually sort of relieved, because I was actually wondering, would I even want that fight with GSP? Could that fight with GSP even happen? And then if it didn't happen, are we going to get a diluted fight out of that? Whether it's with Tony Ferguson or a rematch with somebody else that he's already dominated, whether it be Poirier or Conor. Conor was never going to happen, but nonetheless, I think it was the perfect time to go, the perfect way to go. 30-0 would have looked cooler, but he's already accomplished so much, and there was nothing that he needed to further prove.
Yeah, I sat there, and as he started speaking about his dad, as soon as I saw him fall to the ground and start crying, I knew that all the emotions that he had held in from the distraction of a fight camp to not think about his dad, which I'm sure he did in some certain moments. And his coach, Javier Mendez, even said, I didn't talk to him about his dad, and asked him about his dad when I got there. That's a conversation. When he wants to have that, he'll have that conversation. But it was just, as soon as he fell to the floor, I'm sitting there with a couple friends, and I'm just like, Darnell, don't cry, don't cry, don't cry, don't cry. And he started speaking, and just the way he felt, I've never seen Khabib that emotional in that sense. He's been emotional like mad, calling out Conor and stuff. But crying-wise, that just took a lot out of me, and I was just like, I'm crying, I'm letting it out. If Khabib can let it out, I'm going to cry too. It's fine. And at that moment, I just had this overwhelming feeling of just how much I appreciate Khabib Nurmagomedov as a human being, as a fighter, the things that he's done for the sport, and how honorable he's been in every fight that he's had, minus the ending of the Conor McGregor fight. But that's a whole different story, because how triggered he was in that situation, and I would have done the same thing too. So that's a different kind of emotional. But I don't blame him for retiring. He doesn't honestly have anything to prove at 155 anymore. I know people talk about the Tony Ferguson fight, but I don't want to see that anymore. After what Justin Gaethje did to him, I don't really want to see that fight anymore. And the George St. Pierre thing, do we really want to see that fight? What is Khabib really going to prove beating a George St. Pierre who hasn't really fought in the past couple of years? I think he's fought once in the past 4 or 5 years. That was at middleweight. Yeah. And George St. Pierre said he wouldn't come down to 155 as well. So unless the UFC throws a whole bunch of money at Khabib, I don't even think that would happen, because Khabib has plenty of money. And he said in an interview that he has plenty of ways of making money, and he doesn't have to do that. So I don't think that fight will happen. I think Khabib was smart the way he retired. Didn't take that much damage, and I hope to see many more fighters do that, to where they don't take that much damage and they get out of the game earlier rather than later. But a big topic after this fight was the whole pound for pound. Is Khabib the best of all? The pound for pound best of all time? When he finished the fight, he said, "I just have one thing that I want to ask. I just hope that they put me on that number one on that list for pound, which was held by John Jones." And we woke up Tuesday morning, and he was number one on that list. Do you think that is well-deserved, Nick?
Absolutely, because I think it's beyond his fighting. I think it's beyond what he does in the cage. It's the way that he conducts himself. Like we've mentioned, really the only blemish that he has in his career was the aftermath of that McGregor fight. And even then, it was, I suppose you could say, somewhat reasonable because of the way that he was triggered. But even then, just the consummate professional. Like he is a sincere role model for this game and for this sport, and just as a human being as well. Just somebody who always conveyed respect, yet always commanded it as well. And it was because of his attitude rather than his skill. It wasn't him being this extremely scary guy, because I imagine anybody who has ever fought Khabib before was intimidated once going into the ring. But it wasn't his intimidation factor as it was his just sheer respect. And I think, it's well deserved. The numbers speak for themselves, and then on top of that, the way he conducts himself is, I suppose you could say, the cherry on top of the sundae. I always look at this, like, especially with John Jones' reaction to the claims and everything like that. I sort of look at it in the same way, with LeBron James and Michael Jordan. You can always look at numbers, but you can also look at the aspect outside of the numbers. And as far as basketball, like who in a team sport, like who improves their team the most because of their character, and also what do they do outside of the court, or in this case, outside of the octagon. We've seen that. Like I said, Khabib, he's accomplished so much, and I feel like he's going to continue accomplishing, whether it's coaching or maybe even commentating. But I'm just happy that he retired, because there really was no reason for him to continue.
Agreed. I don't think there's any issue with calling him the pound for pound greatest pound for pound fighter right now and greatest of all time. We're going to talk about that in a little bit, but greatest of all time, we're going to talk about it in a little bit. But pound for pound right now, he's had no competition in his weight class. You can say that people do the comparison with John Jones, but John Jones has had some trouble in his past 3 fights. He's looked a little bit sluggish and maybe unmotivated, and he's had a lot of challenges. If you watch the Dominic Reyes fight, majority people thought that John Jones lost that fight. If you watch the Thiago Santos fight, Thiago Santos fought John Jones with no knees, basically with no knees.
Basically as a paraplegic.
Exactly, and made that fight super competitive. When John Jones fought Alexander Gustafsson, he's had challenges in his career. I understand it's a different weight class, but lightweight is just as tough as that light heavyweight division, especially in that time period. So I feel that Khabib has been dominant in every single one of his performances. Every single one. There wasn't one fight where it was just like, oh my God, Khabib almost lost there. Not one fight. I know Michael Johnson caught him once, but just like that wasn't really that competitive a fight after that. And then we have this recent fight to where the judges gave the first round of Justin Gaethje, which is absolutely ridiculous. I don't know what they were watching. I get the leg kicks and stuff like that, but to fully give him that round, it's a little absurd. So now Khabib has 2 lost rounds in his history of the UFC. But I don't think there's any issue giving Khabib that pound for pound. John Jones isn't fighting right now. He's not active. His last fight wasn't his best performance. Khabib's undefeated in the UFC. I know it's a lesser amount of fights, but it's more dominant performances and more rounds won. So I get it with the John Jones 14 title defenses, but then he still has that asterisk of the PED usage. Khabib doesn't have that as at all. As much as people don't want to bring that into speaking about, because steroids doesn't necessarily give you skill. John Jones does have an amazing skill, but he still tested positive for steroids 2 times, not once, but twice. So that's something that has to be spoken about and has to be put out there. And when I speak about my list, I'm definitely going to talk about that more. But we can't ignore Justin Gaethje. Justin Gaethje went into that fight, wasn't too big of an underdog. Some people had him winning. If you watch a lot of other fighter interviews, they had Justin Gaethje winning. I had Justin Gaethje winning. Not that my opinion matters, but Justin went in there, and
clearly,
as soon as he walked in, he looked so nervous, and I was so confused. I'm like, of all the people to be nervous, the guy who says that he's going to walk in there and he doesn't care if he dies just looked that way. I was very confused, perplexed, and to what he was thinking about when he walked in there. And I guess when you see Khabib, it's a whole different story.
It is, man. Like I had mentioned that when we spoke with Serge last week, that anybody that steps into the ring with Khabib, it's akin to the people that used to step in the ring with Mike Tyson when he was in his prime. You know, they might have been confident going into the fight. They might have felt like, oh, I got this figured out. I know his weaknesses. I know which route to take. But once you step into that ring and you see Khabib standing in front of you, you know that like everything just basically dissipates in that moment. And it's honestly probably the scariest experience somebody can have in the octagon, unless you're going against, let's say, an Amanda Nunes or somebody akin to her. You know, I mean, Khabib was, I felt, the Amanda Nunes of the men. And you know, it's one of those things. It's almost like a write-off once you get there.
Yeah, pretty much. I like that comparison to Amanda Nunes of that division, because Amanda Nunes just looks leaps and bounds better than anybody in that weight in that division, even when she went up. But Khabib always said, "I'm not going to go up in weight. I'm good at lightweight. This is my best weight class. There's no need for me to go up to 170," which I completely respect. It's not like he's not competitive. That's one of the most competitive guys in the sport. Honestly, he never picked his fights. He said, whatever the UFC is going to give to me next, that's who I'm gonna fight. The only time he ever called out anybody was Conor McGregor, and that's because Conor McGregor was just on him, trying to call him out, and he knew how he could beat Conor, and he knew Conor had the belt. So that was a smart decision on his behalf, of course. But back to Justin Gaethje, I don't think Justin Gaethje lost too much stock in that fight.
No,
and
not at all.
At the end of the day, he's still the number 1 guy in the lightweight division. He is a former interim UFC lightweight champion. So if they were to have a title fight next, I feel like Justin Gaethje should be within the talks of that for sure, because he did not have that bad of a performance. He still was on a winning streak before this fight. And I don't think losing to Khabib Nurmagomedov is that bad.
Yeah,
and he did a pretty good job as he was standing with him too, but it was just too much at the end of the day.
Yeah, I mean, I think Gaethje definitely is the first name or one of these slots for this vacancy, this title vacancy now in that weight division. I think one of those should be automatically filled with Justin Gaethje because yes, a loss to you lost, but to Khabib Nurmagomedov, like it's not somebody that you just had a fluke loss or anything like that. So it's understandable. And I think that, like you said, he was the interim champ before this. So I think that UFC really needs to just put pen to paper when this does come to fruition that Justin needs to be one of those fighters. Now, who does he fight? I love this weight division. It is so deep and it's just filled with options that I suppose as we get closer to it or when we think about it more, we'll figure out. But Justin definitely needs to get the one of the slots for this one.
For sure. And now that Khabib is basically going to vacate this title, which is wild. Now that title is vacate, I didn't expect to see that after this. I thought he would keep it and maybe George would move down to fight him for it. Who knows? But now we have the lightweight division with no title holder. And we have a top 5 and a guy who just came from another organization entering this title picture. We have Conor up there. We got Dustin Poirier, right? We got Tony Ferguson. We got now Michael Chandler. We got who am I missing? You know what I'm going to stick in there too? Charles Oliveira, Dan Hooker. There's so many guys in that top of the division. But if you were to create a tournament for that title, Nick, what are you doing? Who's fighting who? Give me two different matchups that lead to a title fight, or you can give me 3. Up to you.
I'd have to. Damn, I have to really think. I mean, we know that we're gonna most likely get Poirier and McGregor now. Chandler, I wouldn't mind
that
seeing
fight.
him.
That fight is only verbally agreed to. It's not verbally set in stone. So
it's not necessarily set in stone. And what kind of worries me about that is that they're going to go ahead and sort of, since I suppose it's up in the air and it's already like out in the universe, I'm concerned that they're going to make that the title fight for the vacancy, which I sincerely hope not.
What's up, Westward?
Sorry about that.
That's okay.
Yeah, going crazy. But and then I mean, Justin Gaethje, we got to get somebody for him too. I mean, I love Dan Hooker. I think he's a great fighter. Maybe start him off with Oliveira. Like I guess if you're gonna set up these guys, pair them with somebody that's closest to them in the rankings. I don't want to see this kind of like NBA or NFL playoff system where the first where the first seed plays the 8th seed. I'd like to see it sort of, be balanced out. And then that way we can get a true transition to that title fight. But yeah, man, like you said, Michael Chandler, like I'm curious to see like who he would fight first, especially being that this would be his introduction to UFC.
Yeah, it's weird because the UFC is paying him a lot of money, so they want to put him in big time fights. But for me, I think if you're setting this up, you got the Dustin and Conor thing, and people are already hyped about that. You keep that fight. Then, you know what? On that whole card, because it's a Conor McGregor card, everybody's going to be watching. You give me a co-main event, give me Justin Gaethje against, oh my God, the name just slipped my mind. Not Tony Ferguson, because we already saw what happened there. Against Michael Chandler. We see, Ferguson against Michael Chandler. I mean, Justin Gaethje against Michael Chandler, excuse me. And then Tony Ferguson against Charles Oliveira. I know it's a little bit of a step down for Tony Ferguson, but he'll still get paid well. It's a Conor McGregor card. He'll get some kind of pay-per-view points, and he'll be fighting somebody who's on a hot streak right now, just like he was on a hot streak. So Tony should understand that, if anything. I know he's been complaining about money. You need to pay me as much as Michael Chandler. They can figure that out. The UFC will figure that out. I know they and I think they should make that Conor McGregor versus Dustin Poirier for the lightweight championship, because I'm a guy where I understand what's best for business, and for the UFC, that's best for business to have either Dustin Poirier or Conor McGregor with the championship. And I'm sure the UFC would want that belt on Conor McGregor.
Oh, of course they would love that. Now that their cash cow is back, or that has the potential to be back without his biggest threat being there. I mean, they're gonna definitely want to. And not only that, but he brings viewers. He brings ticket sales. But that's the thing. Are we going to have a fight where there's actually going to be a crowd in attendance? And are they going to really want to bring McGregor back without having a crowd? So with that in mind, is somebody else going to step in for him for that vacancy? in the meantime. You know, maybe somebody like we said, Justin Gaethje, somebody like Michael Chandler. Like, you really want to make your claim that you really are the best, no matter what promotion you're in. Maybe they just throw him in there, especially with the amount of money that they're paying him. In the meantime, waiting while this pandemic further cools down to have fans in the stadium again.
For sure. And I'm just taking a gander at the lightweight rankings. Like, if I'm forgetting somebody, I feel like there's one person that I'm not remembering that's up there. I know Dan Hooker's up there, but Dan Hooker's coming off a loss. So I think him and maybe, you know what? I'd like to see him and Paul Felder run it back, because that was a really good fight. And that
Paul Felder, that's somebody that I just dropped.
Yeah.
I forgot.
Yeah. There's just so many people up there. But I'm checking it right now. And
weight class, it really is.
It's so stacked. And you still got Alain Quinta in there. You still got Kevin Lee, Diego Fiera, who's been on a roll, but he's injured. He was supposed to fight Drew Dober. We got another guy too in Islam Makhachev, which was one of Khabib's main training partners. So he's fighting Rafael dos Anjos in 2 weeks, or next Saturday. So if he beats Saturday. Yeah, if he beats Rafael dos Anjos, his name is right up there too. He's got that connection to Khabib, and he's been just as dominant as Khabib in his career. So we can have a birth of another Dagestanian grappler / wrestler who can get up there and beat one of these top guys. So that should be interesting as well. But the whole lightweight division from 1 through 15, there's so many guys, and there's a lot of things that they can do there. I was gonna go on to the pound for pound list. But in about a couple minutes, we're going to have Burt Watson come on here, and he is going to talk about the Spider, Anderson Silva, who is going to have his final fight this Saturday, which I'm actually a little bit confused about, because he's done 2 different interviews, and one interview was just like, "Oh, it's my final fight. Yeah, that's it. My final. That's it." Then then he spoke to Ariel Helwani. He's like, "Oh, yes, that's my final fight in the UFC. Yeah, in the UFC. Final fight in the UFC, Anderson Silva. What are we talking about? What are you going to do?" But I feel that he'll make that decision on Saturday after he fights, depending on the outcome. I think that's going to be a very important part. So we'll see what happens there. Just to give you guys a little preface, give me 1 second here. I lost it. But Burt Watson is he used to be the babysitter to the stars in the UFC, the guy that got them everywhere, made sure they were on way, made sure they were in the places they were supposed to be. And we're gonna have him check in a second here. I see him down there, Burt Watson in the house. Let me introduce you guys to one of the most important figures in UFC and MMA history, boxing as well. Don't forget that. Man is Smoking Joe Frazier. The man is in the house. We got Mr. Burt Watson, baby.
What it do, Burt?
What's up, baby?
There he is. How you doing today, Burt?
Man, I'm trying to make it, baby. You know the drill. One day at a time, man. One day at a time.
One day at a time. I couldn't think of anybody better to bring in that has had so many experiences with the man that retires this Saturday in Anderson the Spider Silva. How does this make you feel, knowing that man is going to be retiring this Saturday?
Well, you know, it's been a hell of a journey. First of all, I'd like to thank you guys for having me on your show.
Oh, thank you for coming on the show.
Absolutely.
Greatly appreciated. You showed all the respect in the world, baby.
Absolutely.
But you know, it's exciting, but at the same time, it's comforting to see the legacy that Anderson Silva is going to leave and has laid down so far. You know, and just working with him, and at the same time working with the guy he's getting ready to fight, you know, as a rookie coming in, seeing Uriah come in as a rookie, you know, and then Anderson coming in when he came in. Because when I worked with these guys, you know, all of them were like my children, and I kind of treated them like that. And Anderson Silva is a very special person. You know, he not only was he a great athlete, and probably one of the greatest we've seen or will see in MMA, mixed martial arts. But, you know, they called him the Spider because he executed his skills. Well, he had the same execution of skill set outside of the ring. You know, being from Brazil and speaking Portuguese, he didn't speak a lot of English, but his body language spoke volumes in the person that he was. You know, just the way he carried himself, the way he acted around the fans, the way he reacted to the fans. And I caught him when he knew I was looking and when he didn't know I was looking, you know. So, you know, I got to see a lot of that and the reaction and the interaction. And believe me, I got to hear a lot of the fans, what they felt and how they felt, you know, because the one thing MMA did, and luckily, and you know, transitioning from boxing to MMA, in boxing, you know, I worked with Mike Tyson and De La Hoya and Roy Jones and the majority of those guys during the course of my career. But when they were at the height of their career, you as an average fan couldn't get close to them. You couldn't touch them. You could see them on television, but the security and the bodyguards and everything around them, if they were walking someplace, you couldn't get close to them. But when MMA came along and the UFC came along, it was different. Dana White and the UFC, they put the fans out, they put the fighters out there for the fans. You know, a fan could walk up to Anderson Silva and get an autograph and touch him and shake his hand. He had security and they were on point and they were some big guys, you know, but he didn't really, I think when I first met him, the security wasn't there. But then when, you know, his fame became a little more, you know, then it became a little more necessary. But then it also became necessary because fans were allowed to touch them. Fans were allowed to get autographs. And I'm going to tell you, man, they knew that and they felt that and they knew that we handled it that way. And man, did they respond to it. They responded to it not only on television, in person, at the gate, you know, at different events when they did personal appearances. The fans reacted to it and they were always there. And Anderson Silva was always very ingratiating. You know, he was always smiling. He was always kind of, you know, animated, you know, and reached out to the guys. He would touch the fans. He would hug them. Never signed away from an autograph. Never did. Even after a fight. And most of the time when them guys, when they were finished fighting, they were pretty much done. You know, they were tired of the week. The week had wore them out. The interviews had worn them out. You know, between cutting weight and doing sessions, media sessions, you know, it was tough for them guys. Because let me tell you something, you know, very few of them came in at what I thought was a good weight the week of the fight. So they all struggled. Every one of them struggled. And if anyone ever tell you they didn't, you send them to me, baby. You know. But even during the course of that time, Anderson was still always very open to his fans. Even as his popularity grew and he became more famous, he was always good to his fans. Always.
Agreed. And when it's the second time that I met him was in Las Vegas. And funny story, that's the first time I met you at the presser. I mean, not the presser, the media day. And of course you were nice as you are always. And Anderson came around and he, after his media day, after so many questions he was asked, he came around and he made sure that he spoke to every single fan, greeted them, hugged them, put his arms around them, signed autographs, gave kisses to babies, literally mothers, and just was so human. For a guy who seemed so inhumane as he fought, when you meet him in person, it was, wow, you were amazed as how kind he was, you know, because you don't see that too often.
You know who he upset the most were his corner people, okay? Because when they were finished training around and rolling around with them, they were ready to go, okay? They were ready to go eat and they were ready to go do something and sit down. And as they were walking towards the room in the crowd, a lot of times I'd be at a distance, you know, where I could see it going on. And, you know, Anderson would be walking and somebody would say, Anderson. And he would stop and go over, which was not always a good thing to do. But he would stop and he would go over because once you stopped it was like bees to a nest, baby. You know, they were on you. And his corner guys, they had to drop their bags. They had to sit down. Sometimes I come up and see them, they be sitting on their bags like this, you know, and he's standing up signing autographs, you know. But he was always kind. He was always gracious and very skillful.
Yeah.
And I would see when the guys first came in during the course of the week, I would be the first person to get them. And the first thing I would do was put them on the scale, check their weight, because I needed to know who I had to get in there. You know what? You know, for the most part, it was a lot of them.
Yeah.
So he would come in, and I would see, you know, just his attitude. And from that point on, man, he was always intense. And during the course, we would set up workout rooms for these guys to go working. And I would, at night, I always made sure that I checked all those workout rooms twice a night, every day, consistently. And I would see him working out, and he would wear his guys out. I mean, seriously, you know, because he'd have a striking coach and he had a grappling coach. I know them. I don't remember their full names, but he had about 4 or 5 coaches, and they each would get up, you know, technically and work out with him. And he'd be wearing them out consistently.
Yeah, I remember hearing the story about him after he fought Tyler Slatus, and he went in the back there and he did an extra 5 rounds after because he felt like he didn't get a good fight out of that, because that fight went kind of weird. Tyler Slatus ended up getting injured, and he's like, you know what, I'm not done. I still want to go a couple more rounds. But Burt, was there any specific story you remember about Anderson Silva in the time that you spent with him?
Well,
something that comes to your mind?
You know, one of the things that stood out for me with him, he was also very much a family man. He was very much into his family. And he later on, he started bringing his 2 kids around, you know, and I just kind of now just recently saw a piece where he's actually working out with his son.
Yeah, with Gabriel.
Yes. And yeah. I remember Gabriel when he was here, you know, with little braids and, you know, and he was running around, and he was very close to those kids. And, you know, he always made sure that they were right by his side. Well, we were in the dressing room one night, and I don't particularly allow children in the dressing room area because it's not a safe place for them to be, because these guys are messing with the screen. I don't want to mess us up.
You're good.
You know, because these guys get to throwing people around. They don't know who's in the way, and anybody that's in the way and getting hit usually knows and used to getting hit. So I didn't allow children, and, you know, sometimes not a lot of the girlfriends or stuff, especially in the dressing room and fight night. So Anderson came in one night, and he had his sons, and they were outside, and, you know, he asked me if he could get a minute with his sons. And I said, okay. So I went out and I got him, and I brought him back, and he kind of, you know, had his little moment, and I leave them alone because they also have a moment of prayer in the dressing rooms. That was a cultural tradition with them, with everybody, with the camp, even if they had to leave the dressing rooms to go do that. And he wanted his sons to do that. So I did that. And then I had to go take a fight to the cage. So I had to leave them. Now, on the way to the cage, you know, that walk from the cage to the octagon is one hell of a walk. I can't tell you how many of these I've lost going from the dressing room to the cage. Okay, one of them I went up there and got it back. Okay, but the other one, it went off. But that's how close the fans were, and that's how they were. So at some point, depending, you know, when we were in Vegas, depending on where, they had police sometimes to kind of make sure that the guys were safe when they were getting to the ring. So Anderson's sons were back there with him, and it was time for him to walk out. And I had just taken the other fight in, and I know I had to go get him. So I had to go get him. And his sons didn't want to leave him. So he had his 2 sons. Then the police came to escort him, but the policemen didn't want his sons. They didn't want his sons, and they were not going to let his sons walk down that aisle. And they didn't know how to tell him, but just to go and remove the kids. So I came back there, and it came to me, and we had a situation. Because here it was, time for him to walk, time for him to go. And he had them kids, and he was not going to let them kids go. So I walked up to him, and I knew he wasn't really listening, but I kind of got right up in his face, and I told him that I needed his sons. And I did that gesture, that I needed his sons. And he looked at me, and he gave them to me.
Wow.
A man gave me his kids, okay, to take care of them. So I took his 2 kids, and I could see the relief on his face. And I took his 2 kids, and I walked them down. It was a little crazy because they didn't know who they was, but when they saw them with me, they knew who they were.
Yeah.
And they were going crazy. And I walked his 2 kids, and I sat them down. And when I sat them down, they didn't understand what I was saying, but I gave them that grandfather look, like, y'all better not move, okay?
Don't mess up.
Y'all better not move. Okay? And I gave them that look, and you know what? They looked at me, and I swear they knew what I was saying. And I left those kids there, and I went on back. And when I went back, I saw Anderson Silva come down, stand in the middle of the light by himself. Man, and then it hit me what had I'm a grandfather and a father. So I know what kids mean to a father and a grandfather. And for a man, as simplistic as it may sound, for him to give me his kids, you know, with a comfort level that they were going to be all right was really special. And that's one thing about Anderson that I'll never forget. And he won that fight. You know?
Yeah, and you won that fight. What fight was that?
And afterwards, I let them go in the cage, because I was always cautious of that, especially with the higher profile guys and the last fight of the night, because people really, they came out of nowhere, man.
Was that the Chael fight when they came in the ring and they were crying with him and they were in the cage, like super emotional?
When he fought Chael?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. I remember that, because I had never seen his kids in the cage with him before, and that never usually happened. You would see it happen in the back or something like that, but he had them in the actual cage with them. So,
but you know, and it amazed me. Now I haven't seen those kids since that. I'm brain farting right now. I don't remember how long ago that was, but I haven't seen those kids since that. But you know, to see that kid Gabriel on television the other night, wow,
unbelievable, right? I saw it. It was on that UFC Destined documentary thing they had there, and he's now a 2-time kickboxing champion. He's moving up the ranks just like his dad.
I can see that, because he used to work out with them. When I say work out, you know, it depends on who was in the workout rooms and what time and what hour. I'd go back and forth. And sometimes I see the kids in there, and I see them sitting in the corner, you know, and when I come in, they put their head between their laps like I don't see them. Okay. You know, but I know they didn't belong. But I knew he was very, very much into those boys, and they were into working out, and those guys worked out with him a little bit. So I just kind of, you know, turned it around and let it go. And then I'd speak to Rafa or one of his other guys and let him know, you know, from a security standpoint, insurance standpoint, you know, I'm gonna give you another 10 minutes, but they're gonna have to go. You know,
Then they gotta go. That is amazing.
It was a real pleasure, man, working
That's
with him, getting to experience being with him, you know, and never realizing how much of history that part of life was going to become. But it was good.
Lost you there for a second.
Man,
you're good. You're good. We still hear you. But Burt, we appreciate it. We appreciate it so much for you coming on and speaking about Anderson Silva and his amazing career, the moments that you had with him, of course. We lost Burt completely. Oh no. I don't know where he went, but we appreciate Burt Watson for coming on to talk about that and talk about his kids. I remember that moment of Anderson Silva's kids coming into the ring, and he was crying with them, and just, you know, it was a very, very, very emotional moment. And that. Oh wait,
It
hold
was
on.
a bloody ring too.
Bloody ring. Hold on, I want to get him back on here. There we go.
Okay,
there you go.
There we go.
That's Anderson's dad.
Yeah. I got the picture. I got that picture on back there.
Where'd you get that from?
Come on, baby. You know how I work. I get these things, man. I get these things.
Now, wait a minute. I thought I was the only one that had that picture.
Now I got it too. So everybody can see it.
Wow.
I had to pull that one out. I know that brings back a long time ago memories for sure.
And very few people know that that's his dad.
That's his dad. Yeah, he never really spoke about his dad that much throughout his career.
No,
didn't bring that up.
Hey, I appreciate it.
Hey, Burt, we appreciate you so much. Of course, you can come.
Yes, sir.
Absolutely.
And for you and all your listeners, Burt Watson now has a YouTube channel, baby.
That's right.
How to do that. Make sure you go to it and go to the video section. Scroll down the video sections and check out the videos. And as I go along and I do interviews, I'm going to be posting them. And
legend to legend.
Your night, your fight. Get it right, baby. Boom.
All night long, baby. Thank you, bro. We appreciate you so much, boss.
Appreciate you, man. Good luck to you, baby.
Thank you. Hey, the legendary Burt Watson in the house. We appreciate him for coming on. Those legendary words that the fighters, I'm sure, miss these days because that just got them so amped up. It made GSP go and throw up because he got so nervous. He heard Burt Watson just scream, "We rolling!" which gives me goosebumps just hearing. And I appreciate him coming on. But back to now, perfect. We just spoke about it, GOAT, and then we just spoke to a living legend. Mm-hmm. We got to talk about this now. This has been a very big topic. The pound for pound list, top 5 pound for pound. Actually, you know what? Let's talk. No, that's fine. Let's go straight into the top 5 pound for pound. I've been anticipating this all day, all week. I've been thinking about it. It's been in my mind. Nick, if you want to start off with your top 5 pound for pound of all time, this can change throughout time. I'm just talking about right now. Everybody, when you watch this, I want you to comment below and give your opinion on your top 5 pound for 5. Send me a text, send me a DM. I don't care what it is. I want to hear what you have to say. But Nick, your time right now. Who you got?
Right, so I haven't. It's only been about a decade and change that I've actually been watching UFC. So I have some names on there that most likely wouldn't be on anybody else's list. But of course, we'll just start with the most recent. Okay. Obviously,
fuck everybody else's list. This is your list, baby.
So of course, we'll start off with this weekend's winner, and this is in no particular order. But of course, Khabib Nurmagomedov. Like I said, just a great fighter. Every fight he's ever done, he's won in a convincing fashion. Same reason I elected Amanda Nunes up there, GSP. And then I had a hard time filling out these last 2 spots because there's a lot of names that I think that should be up there. But people that have always or at least fighters that have always stuck out with me was, of course, Joanna Jędrzejczyk. I hope that she comes back, especially after the wonderful fight that she had, the wonderful performance she had against Yang. And Randy Couture, which is actually probably one that wouldn't make a lot of people's list. But Randy Couture was just an absolute beast.
Captain America right there, man. Won titles in 2 different weight classes. Right. Not that many people have done that. So there's no problem with Randy. He was a small
dude for the heavyweight too.
He wasn't
guys.
220. He was something like that in that range, which is amazing. Well, yeah. Just like you said, I'm gonna go with you with not in any particular order because I don't think it matters within that list. You being on that list is already an honor enough. Number wise, It doesn't really matter. I'm gonna say that to everybody. Number 1, number 2, John Jones, Khabib, whoever you want to switch it up and down. Who cares? Who cares? Right. As long as they're on the list, that's what matters the most. So on my list, I'm going to go with Daniel Cormier. Got to put DC up in there. He's won a title in light heavyweight and at heavyweight. And his only losses has been to people who are in my list at the same time. So hasn't lost to that many people and has beaten so many legendary superstars in their prime to add there. My next person is George St. Pierre, welterweight and middleweight champion, came back after retiring and won that middleweight championship. He had a consecutive streak for years of not losing that title, defended it so many times. So you cannot have a list without George St. Pierre, I feel, but you can, depending on how much MMA you've watched. Then, of course, I got to put in there John Jones. John Jones is on that list. I know he has the asterisk of steroids. Some people have made lists without steroids and with steroids because there's been other guys who are in pound for pound who have tested positive for steroids as well. But I'm not doing that. I'm just putting John Jones on that list. I think he had a lot of skill. None of that steroids gave him the skill that he had. He wasn't winning these fights by strength or a certain kind of like power. So John Jones, of course, and the man who's retiring this Saturday, Anderson Silva. Come on, this man has fought
Supposedly.
This guy has went on a 2,500 days. He didn't lose a fight, and he held that title. Like, that is unheard of. I don't think it'll be done in this day and age. I don't know, unless Khabib wants to come back and fight for a couple more years. But that's something that's not going to be done. He won 15 title fights, which is completely crazy. I don't know if the UFC gave him
UFC history, right?
Yeah, I don't know if the UFC has given him any all of the belts. Like, I would be curious to see that, or where he keeps them. But that would be an amazing photo of him and all his belts. But then I had some honorable mentions that I had to put in there. I just thought of a couple people that I'd like could have been in there. And one of them who I feel will be in there is Stipe Miocic. How do we not talk about Stipe Miocic enough? This heavyweight has beaten every possible heavyweight in his career, and especially at their prime, from the Ngannous, from the Verdums, to the who else is Stipe? Alistair Overeem, to Junior Dos Santos. Like, so many guys you can name. Daniel Cormier, two times. Stipe has to be up there in the GOAT talks. Another person we have to talk about as well. Of course, Amanda Nunes. Amanda Nunes is another one, but I feel like I don't even have to explain what she's done, because she has a ridiculous amount of fights that she's won and people that she's beaten. And people thought Ronda Rousey was going to be that good, but Amanda Nunes came in there and said, that's my title. I'm taking that back. No. I'm the GOAT of the females. There's no way that's happening. And I'm gonna sneak these last three in there. And I'm gonna say Demetrius Johnson, of course, a lot of title defenses. Henry Cejudo, titles in 2 different weight classes, and beat one of the best of all time, Demetrius Johnson. And then Fabricio Verdum, I have to put him in there because he's beaten the likes of Fedor, Kane. Oh my God, like so many guys that people would never think this man would defeat, and he went in there and took him out. He was the first guy to finish Fedor Emelianenko, who people have in their top 5 of greatest of all time. And I have a lot to say about that, but we'll talk about that another time. I'm not going to give you my Fedor spiel now, because that's not that important. But Nick, I love your list, man. Your list is great. There's nothing wrong with that. The Joanna Jędrzejczyk thing, you can't name another female who was as dominant besides her within a title reign, besides Ronda Rousey and Amanda Nunes. You got Joanna Jędrzejczyk.
Right.
Of course, you want to talk about Valentina Shevchenko, but she's not in the strongest weight division. Joanna is. Joanna was.
No.
And I feel like that's super important. So I like that a lot. I like that choice. But we have to talk about somebody we've been looking for a while. You know what I'm talking about, Nick? I think I lost Nick. I might have lost Nick. We were talking about somebody we were losing, and I literally lost Nick. So give me a moment to make sure he's going to come back.
I think I'm back.
There we go. That's perfect. I'm like, we lost somebody. I know, I even got
a message on that. Yeah, I got.
Literally, it said we lost somebody, and then boom, we lost Nick, and Nick is back. But we lost somebody, and now he's finally been found. Leon, where are you? Where are you? Leon Edwards finally has a fight. Jesus Christ, it's taken so long to see Leon Edwards to get back in that octagon. He hasn't fought in a year. He's been turning down fights, and it's just been a very ridiculous quarantine or a coronavirus pandemic period for Leon Edwards. But he has accepted a fight against Khazmat Chaimov December 19th at the UFC Apex in Las Vegas. Nick, are you excited as I am? Because I am pumped for this one.
Yeah, I'm excited. This is going to be Khamzat's biggest challenge yet. And the funny thing is that I still think he's going to win like he has his last fights. It's kind of crazy saying that against somebody like Leon Edwards, but for somebody that's been out for such a long time and just the freak of nature that Khamzat is, I actually think that Khamzat is still going to win this, and convincingly. So I think that, man, Leon, like, for all the guys that you could have fought earlier this year, now is when you're going to settle. And on top of people you're going to settle for, you're going to settle for possibly one of these guys who we may be talking in the future as the GOAT and the best pound for pound fighter in Khamzat Chimaev. So it's going to be, I mean, do you think that's an unwise fight for him to take, or do you think he's actually going to stop all the hype?
I think it's a very risky fight for Leon because he's ranked number 3 and he's fighting somebody who hasn't even fought anybody in the top 15. So it's very risky. But I kind of see what the UFC did there. They took him out of the rankings. He's like, oh, no, don't do that. And it kind of was a leverage thing, and they got him to accept that fight. So do I think it's a smart decision for Leon? No, but at the same time, it shows how much confidence he has in his skill and that he can defeat anybody. I think that he could possibly stop that hype train. Khazmat has not fought anybody in that top 15 in any one of the weight classes that he's competed in. So it could be very interesting to see how that goes. Leon Edwards has pretty good takedown defense and has excellent striking. And he's going to be very motivated going into there after every other welterweight declined fights, and he declined fights against certain welterweights. And now look how that ended up. Now you're fighting somebody that's not even ranked. So it's going to be very interesting, but I think he's going to go in there pretty motivated.
Let's see, man. Let's see, because honestly, like Khazmat has just looked unbelievably unstoppable. Like I know that, like I said, he hasn't really fought anybody to Leon's standards. But I mean, I guess, yeah, like you said, when he saw that he actually fell off the rankings, I thought that was a joke when you texted me. And then
I thought it was a joke too.
And then all of a sudden I see like all these MMA reporters actually posting the story and everything. And I'm like, man, this is crazy. But I guess that's what it took for him to finally come out and actually take a fight now, which I'm glad that they did, because I mean, dude, it's been, you know, he might as well be the new Waldo.
And what a way it's going to be to end the year if Khazmat, who's had an amazing year, goes in there and like knocks out Leon Edwards or just like completely dominates him. That would be a crazy way to end his year. And you know what that means? If he beats him, Khazmat beats Leon Edwards. Excuse me, Gilbert Burns, we got a title contender right there, because they're going to put him right in there against Kamaru Usman. I guarantee you, if that's what ends up happening, Gilbert's not going to get that title shot. It sucks for Gilbert, but business. You know how UFC rolls. It's all about the business. So I see Khazmat back in there. We got another fight that was announced as well. Dominic Reyes is going to be taking on Yuri Prochaza February 27th. Not sure what the location is going to be, but this is a risky fight for Dominic Reyes after coming out a knockoff loss to Jan Blachowicz, the UFC light heavyweight champion, by the way.
Yeah, I mean, this is gonna. He hasn't really looked himself, but I think what happened was that he was still riding on that whole, you know, like, oh, I should have won that fight against John Jones and everything like that. Which, by the way, I actually want to point out again that I did pick Jan Blachowicz over Dominic Reyes. I know some people that didn't do that, but we won't dive into it too deep. But yeah, like, no, I think Dominic needs to know that, like, this is. You know, he's got to win here, or else he's just going to continue, you know, falling down the rankings and dissipating and just sort of, you know, being forgotten.
I think it's a very risky fight in the sense of Yuri has a lot of knockout power, and Dominic just dealt with somebody with a lot of knockout power. And I always get so nervous of these fighters taking, I mean, it's going to be a long time from now, but fighting heavy-handed people back-to-back is rough. I get it. He's in that weight division to where that's going to happen, but maybe he should have fought like a Rakic. Rakic is pretty heavy-handed too, but the Yuri thing is very risky. Yuri's not even ranked super high yet in the light heavyweight division. I think he's like number 7 or 6 or something, and Dominic is still ranked number 1 in that weight class. So if he goes in there and he loses to Yuri, Yuri might get that title shot immediately, but that kind of opens up the door for a possible, and I'm hearing this, an Israel Adesanya versus Jan Blachowicz. So that should be very, very interesting.
Well, Jan called him out not too long ago. Was it today or yesterday?
That was today.
That was today, right?
Yep, that's right. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say that. I mean, that's going to be quite the sight to see somebody as big as Jan Blachowicz. I mean, obviously we know that Adesanya is a big guy too, but in comparison to some of the guys in that weight class, I mean, it's going to be a sight to see. And even then, I think Adesanya could win that fight.
For sure. Adesanya is just a different level of a human being. And any weight class you put that man in, he's going to do wonderful, wonderful things.
You know, the funny thing is that for my pound for pound, I was going to actually have him in there. But because he hasn't necessarily finished his career out yet, I wanted to stick to people that, you know, are not within their prime of their career, because we don't know how it's going to end. But yeah, Israel Adesanya is just a freak of nature.
He is. But guys, we are actually running out of time. I didn't think this would happen, but Burt gave us some really good memories of Anderson Silva. We really love that. We have about like 2 or 3 minutes left. Tonight, by the way, we have Douglas Lima versus Gaithje Mousassi, middleweight championship. It's vacant. Rafael Lovato Jr. had to vacate the title because of medical issues. And we have Douglas Lima coming up from welterweight to fight Gaithje Mousassi. So that's going to be good. That's on the Bellator card tonight. Like right after this, go turn it on because there's prelims on. What else? Am I missing something else? One of the most important things, we are very, very close to the election.
Speaking of title bouts.
Yeah, speaking of title bouts, we got the heavyweight champion, Donald Trump, against the middleweight champion, Joe Biden. Next Tuesday. It's going to be very interesting to see what happens. It's a very important election. I hope everybody went out there and vote. I voted. I know Nick voted. It didn't take too long. It's not going to take too long. They've been better at this. It's probably the best I've ever seen. And I've been voting for four terms now. We've been voting, right? Four terms?
We've been voting for four terms now. Yeah.
When I was 18, it took me 9 hours to vote. 9 hours to vote. I sat there at the library that long. This week, it took me 20 minutes to go and vote. If you have 20 minutes in your day during lunch, sometime after
everybody
work,
has 20 minutes in their day for that.
That's what I'm saying. I agree. Please go out there, make a difference. You want to choose somebody. You want something specific to happen within your community, within this country, within your government, within your city. Go there, vote. Do some research before you vote. Don't just put any random no, yes, and not know what you're voting for. Read into it. Learn. We have a lot of things that you can look up on the internet for that, or read things you can read. A lot of people who can tell you about what you're voting for. Don't be lazy. Please, Tuesday, big election, vote. Nick, do you have a prediction for Tuesday? No, I'm kidding. I'm just kidding.
I gotta see the weigh-in, right? I gotta see the weigh-in.
Gotta see the weigh-in. Who's gonna look better? But no, it's gonna be super interesting to see what happens. And yeah, it's next week is going to be a lot, and we'll talk about that next week. We'll definitely bring that up in the show. But if we're going to
have post-fight coverage.
Post-fight coverage, yes. Post-election fight.
Post-election coverage.
Hopefully, there's no fights anywhere. We'll pray for none of that. But Nick, any shout outs before we get out of here?
Yeah, just to further speak about this, the importance of it. I mean, this is really important. Honestly, as weird of a year as it's been, I know that there's a lot of people that are very prone to this pandemic, to this illness that's COVID-19, and I understand their precautions on going out. But you can still vote by mail. Honestly, it's not. I know a lot of people want to dilute the legitimacy of it, but it's been going on for such a long time. So if you feel uncomfortable, you can vote by mail. And for those that do feel comfortable going out, go ahead and go and vote. You're going to spend, I've seen people spend, more time doing things that are obviously not as important. And, if you can go out and you can hang out with your friends, I know that we're still kind of in this transition of, getting out of quarantine and everything like that. But I've seen people hanging out. I see you guys' Instagram stories. I see your guys' Instagram posts. You're hanging out with your friends. So if you're going to spend time with them, that's great. But also, this is an important election. Every election is important because not everybody has the opportunity to vote like we do. So, take advantage of that liberty. Take the time, and like Darnell said, do your research. Don't let somebody spoon feed you the information. You can look it up yourself and make a conscientious decision on your own. So make sure you do the research, and really importantly, don't just be looking to vote for the presidents, but look for your local representatives and also your local amendments, because those are probably going to have a bigger factor in your life than whoever the president becomes. So inform yourself and just be responsible. That's really all it comes down to. This is a liberty, but really it's your duty to, in my opinion, to go out and vote, especially, like I said, that there's other places where you don't have a choice. You don't have a voice either. So go out there and yeah, we'll see what happens on Tuesday.
That's right. Saturday, remember Anderson Silva's final fight, maybe. Check that card out. It's a really good card. Greg Hardy's on that card as well. It's going to be a good one. It's free. It's on ESPN. It's on Halloween. Mm-hmm. Please don't go to big pack parties, guys. If you have something small you want to go to, that's fine. Or if you're going to do that, just wear your mask. Please don't make this worse than it already is. I don't want to see that happen. But I do want to see your costumes and whatever you guys put on. It's going to be cool. Send them to me. Especially if you do any.
I mean, that's the beauty about Halloween. That's the beauty of Halloween, right? You usually wear a mask anyway, so.
That's exactly. So wear that mask and make sure
let's just treat every day from now on until we have a vaccine like it's Halloween. Wear your mask, your favorite mask.
I agree. But all right, guys, we appreciate you guys for joining us. Of course, we might be doing something after this. I'm going to let you guys know. I'm going to have a conversation with Nick. But of course, subscribe, please. We'll be here every week, always. The Mystic Hour, Nick, DP, Black, Mystic Black, this side, upside, wherever side Nick is on. You see where he is.